Hi everyone. I've relocated myself several times and helped many tech professionals move abroad. And that's why I can tell you this. Some countries are now paying tech workers up to 30,000 euros just to relocate there in 2026. And what most people don't even realize is that it's not just about the financial bonus. There's a combination of tax incentives, lower cost of living, but also remote work regulations that can triple your savings in a year. And 2026 is the key window. Several European countries are introducing new tech visa programs, including ones that benefit remote workers with families, benefits that they had never had before. In the next few minutes, I will show you the 5 countries offering the strongest relocation packages for tech workers in 2026. Make no mistake, 2026 is unlike previous years. Governments are deploying serious financial incentives for tech talents like you. Many tech talents think relocation is just a bonus and it's just a gimmick, or they come with impossible conditions. But the reality is that Europe faces at least 500,000 unfilled tech positions. So governments are no longer just complaining, they're actively competing for global talent. By the way, if you want a second opinion on whether a move abroad could make sense for you in your personal situation, you can always book a quick call with me. Sometimes 10 minutes of clarity save months of guesswork. You can find a link below in the description. Country number 1, and this one may surprise you a bit, it is Greece. Greece has copied a lot of the good stuff that other Mediterranean countries offer. And the main thing is you get a 50% income tax reduction for 7 years on your Greek income. So for example, if you're a freelancer, you set up your company in Greece and you're making about 80K per year in sort of profit, which you can pay as a salary, then you save 18K per year due to the tax reduction. And in some cases, you can actually get additional grants for flights, deposits, housing, language courses, many things about your relocation, but it really depends on where you're relocating. Generally, if you move to remote islands and border areas, you tend to get more. If you move to just the big cities, then you may not get anything. So be sure to check the specific case. And childcare is much less expensive. I think this is a really important factor if you have kids, because it tends to be a big a part of your monthly budget. In Greece, it's more like 300 to 600 euros, whereas in Munich, for example, it's more like 1,100 euros, or in Zurich, it's 3,000 euros per month. So there's a big difference. So overall, I would say families can save about 100,000, maybe even a bit more, euros over 5 years by relocating to Greece. And if that's not good enough, you get 300 days of sunshine, you get the Mediterranean lifestyle, you get the lower cost of living and just often a more relaxed life, and the beach is just around the corner. Keep in mind, this works best for remote workers and freelancers, so don't necessarily try to look for a normal local dev job in Greece, because the local salaries are lower, whereas if you can work remotely or you work for an international company, the numbers can really work out in your favor. Country number 2, and this is kind of a classic one. Portugal has sort of a tech visa 2.0 thing going on. If you have a startup and you're also pretty young and you fulfill certain criteria, you can get a whole lot of 13,000 euros in benefits in 1 year. Be careful, there's quite some restrictions around that though, so do check the individual case. Also, Portugal has renewed the NHR program, very famous program. If you qualify, you can get a 20% flat tax rate for 10 years. But be careful, you need to actually structure your income through a Portuguese entity to qualify. It's not as loose and easygoing as it used to be before, but it is possible you can have your own, or you can work for an existing Portuguese entity. Also, if the remote work thing is not quite your thing, there are strong tech hubs, so you could also just apply for a more or less regular job at Google, Microsoft, Stripe, and many more companies, because especially Lisbon has turned into a real tech hub these days. Finally, the cost of living in Lisbon, but especially in the rest of Portugal, is still moderate. So for example, if you take Lisbon, with about 4,000 to 5,000 euros per month, you can live comfortably as a family of 4. As a single, obviously less, or if you move to Porto or to other cities in Portugal, it can be less. It is still more than quite a few other European places because Portugal has become popular, but it is still less than the really expensive cities in Europe like Munich, Zurich, or London, where you need to spend much more money. Country number 3, the Netherlands. So the Netherlands have luckily finally extended their 30% ruling on the income tax. So you get 30% off the taxed salary, which means that, for example, if you have a 100K pre-tax salary, then over 5 years, you get about 150K of tax-free income. Of course, the actual savings are slightly lower, but 150K of income that you do not need to pay taxes on. Isn't that cool? Also, on top of that, companies can pay a tax-free relocation one-time bonus of about 7,000 euros. It's important, though, that the company actually offers it. It's not something that comes straight from the government. Also, I would say the Netherlands are fairly family-friendly. It's a safe country. Schools tend to be excellent. English definitely works in the beginning for your children as well as you. But of course, keep in mind, if you want to stay there in the long term, definitely your children, but probably also you will have to learn Dutch, which should be easy though, because Dutch and English are really, really similar. What is also cool is that the Netherlands have a really, really strong tech market. Companies like ADN, Booking.com, and hundreds of scale-ups and startups and international companies. They're there because they are either actually from there or they have an office there. So you're definitely going to find something cool to work on, and the salaries are decent. Senior salaries are in the ballpark of 80K to 100K, so you can definitely live with that. There's just one caveat though, since the Netherlands are the most densely populated country in Europe, it can actually be really tricky to find housing. You should start the search early and ideally get help. Ideally, your employer offers help, or there are service providers that can help you out. If you need help, just reach out to me and I'll be happy to be of service. Country number 4, and this one is a bit of a mixed bag, but it might still be a big opportunity for you. Germany. So there is the Chancenkarte Plus under this nice name. You have a points-based system, obviously copied from other countries. Very clever move on behalf of Germany. If you qualify, you can actually move to Germany even without a binding job offer, which makes looking for a job much easier because you're already in the country. Also, employers can pay a good chunk of your relocation costs. And in some cases, there might even be government grants to cover some of your relocation and integration costs. But don't bet on that too much because these programs often come with certain strings attached. Universities are more or less tuition free, especially if your children end up being EU citizens by then a couple of years down the road. And very importantly, job protections are really, really very much in your favor. For entrepreneurs, this can be a different story, but for you as a talent, as an employee, it can be really good, especially as an immigrant, because it lowers the pressure a bit. Also, the tech market is really massive. If you look at Munich, if you look at Berlin, Hamburg, all these cities, they have many, many companies of every size. And the salaries in some cases can be actually quite decent, at least before taxes and social security. Senior salaries range somewhere between, I would say, 75,000 euros per year and 120,000 euros per year. Obviously, for more than 100K, you have to be really special, like it doesn't come for free, but it is possible. Similar to the salaries also is the cost of living. It varies widely. Cities like Munich, Hamburg, and even Berlin are more on the expensive side, whereas smaller cities and towns or Eastern Germany, they're much less expensive. So if you can work remotely and maybe come in the office only like once a month or something, that's definitely a consideration to save on the cost of living. Childcare can also be a bit of a problem because in theory there is affordable and public childcare, but in practice, you often have to go for a private option, which can easily cost around 1,000 euros per month, depending a bit on which city. So be careful with the childcare topic, but if you play your cards right, it can actually be manageable. And then finally, you might think everything is efficient in Germany. That's not always the case. Paperwork, bureaucracy can be really, really tricky. but there are support services. If you need help with this, you can definitely reach out to me, and then we can help you, or we can point you in the right direction. Country number 5. You might know this one because of the famous Beckham's Law. We're talking about Spain, of course. Spain offers you a flat tax rate of 24%, which is significantly less than the usual one, for 6 years for an income of up to 600,000, which should cover most of you. And if you're lucky, you might even get a government grant, one-time grant for relocating if you move to more rural areas like Extremadura. Be aware though, if you move to the main hubs that everybody likes and knows, like Madrid or Barcelona, you probably don't get a government grant, or not too much. But on the other hand, Spain is very family friendly. It has good public schools. It really has affordable international schools. If you want to send your child to an international school, you can easily be like 50% less expensive than in the US, in the UK, or other European countries. And since that typically is a huge part of your monthly spendings, this could be a real consideration if you're into international schools. Plus, the children can, of course, learn Spanish locally, which can be a real asset. Healthcare also tends to be really, really good. There is public healthcare, which is not entirely free, but it's like very low cost. And then in addition, there's also private doctors, which also compared to other countries, I would say they're definitely more on the affordable side and come with all the nice perks of a private doctor, like instant appointments and so on. The startup ecosystem is really, really growing. Especially in the big cities like Barcelona and Madrid, but also now in Valencia and Malaga. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of drive. The salaries are a bit lower, especially if you work for local companies. They're more in the ballpark of 50 to 80K, but in turn you get lower taxes if you benefit from Beckham's Law, and you get a lower cost of living. And if you have a remote/international salary and clients, even better. A family of 4 can live well for about 4,000 euros per month. Really depends on the location. I'm talking more about the bigger and more expensive cities. If you live on the countryside, obviously less will be enough. And if all of that is not good enough, you get a super nice outdoor lifestyle, many sunshine days, good weather, and a relatively strong work-life balance. Don't forget, Spain has one of the highest life expectancies in Europe and in the world, and that's not coming from nothing. Now you might ask, but Raphael, you always talk about Switzerland. Where is Switzerland? Why is it not one of those 5 countries? First of all, I just wanted to see if you guys are actually listening. But second, Switzerland is just not making so many special offers and discounts, because basically what you've been getting the last decade or so is already quite a good offering compared to other countries. But Switzerland is still one of the, I would say, top 3 countries in the world to move to for some people, so be sure to check out my other videos. Now, if you've watched this and realized that relocating in 2026 will give you the financial and lifestyle advantage that you could never get in your home country or just your current country, then you're already ahead of most tech professionals. The truth is that choosing where you build your career matters just as much as the job itself. The countries in this video can change your take-home pay, your cost of living, and also your long-term freedom in a very short amount of time. If you want clarity on which relocation program fits your situation best and how you can use these incentives for yourself, book a call with me. I moved abroad myself multiple times, and I've helped others through this process, so I can guide you through the steps that really matter the most. The link to speak with me is below in the description. See you in the next one.